responding, giving yourself 24 hours is kind of my rule. If you feel something, it's usually important, but wait, because your best response is going to be the next day. So egos can come in, but if you give the ego 24 hours to chill, it'll chill your ego. It'll likely be a better scenario for everybody when you actually do act.
Yeah. So, hello, my fellow pirates the world over and tech aficionados, practitioners, and loyal listeners to this here very humble podcast of mine. Today, it is my utmost pleasure to receive here in the captain's cabin Ashley Zucchet Logan, who's she's a proven HR leader with reams of experience in talent development programs, leadership programs. She's done leadership coaching. I mean, she's done it all in terms of like training and coaching and whatnot. And it's something that I think we need to talk about, because it's one thing to go and grab hire talent, but then you have to make that talent grow and get the most out of it and make them thrive in your work environment. And I think that Ashley here will obviously be able to fill us in on that. But first of all, she knows the drill. She needs to. We would very much appreciate, Ashley, if you would share cabin gossip with our listeners. So something that is not known to many people.
Sure. Hi. Thank you for having me. I will share some cabin gossip. I will probably choose the fact that I moonlight as a voice actor. So I did not go to school for this. I am not trained for this, but I was selected, and I think there was some bias in the selection process because my husband is the podcast guy, but he really behind the scenes, he's more of an author. He writes thriller horror novels. He has about 63 books right now, and climbing. He has a very non-linear career path, so it's kind of more of he might be someone that you'd like to interview in the future. But he was a scientist in ocular pathology, and he ended up moving on to something totally different. So the genre of thriller, horror, he has all those books, and then he started a podcast. He actually did it in collaboration with my daughter, who was the narrator. So it was a kind of a cute father-daughter collab. Nice. And it was called Camp Fear, and it rose to the top of Spotify. But they needed a nagging mother, so who else other than me to play the role of the nagging mother? And so I have been profiled in probably about four or five of the episodes, and I've been typecast again as the nagging mother, and so every time they need somebody to yell or scream or take on that role, that's nag, that's me. So it does seem a little bit different in writing, but I would say that's the thing that I do outside of it's one of the things I do outside of my day-to-day job.
That's awesome. It is awesome. And I discovered the world of fiction podcast quite recently, and I must say that horror is genre that really is featured predominantly, at least in my interests. And I've been devouring episodes of Old Gods of Appalachia, which is one horror podcast set in the Appalachian region of the United States. The Magnus Archives. I'm also I've been going through. The Lovecraft Investigation something. So it's all about horror, cosmic horror and whatnot.
Yeah, interesting.
It is it's kind of like a call back to the talk radio of like years gone by, and it's they're wonderful authors and actors, voice actors out there. I think it's just like when when driving, when doing any kind of manual thing, it meshes so well.
It gives. I find that it gives your brain a bit of a vacation. Like you don't, your eyes don't have to read anything. You can kind of sit back, close your eyes, and just listen. And I like that, because our lives, our days are really busy and we're bombarded by a million things, but you can kind of isolate everything out and just listen, and it's nice to have that.
So I will definitely check your husband's and daughters and yourself, because you're part of it, podcast, and add it to my.
Not the star.
Well, yeah, I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah.
And let you know what I think. But I also like the father-daughter angle, because I'm speaking of voice acting. My own daughter's 5 years old, and I started by reading her stories, but very quickly she asked me to make up stories. She'd rather have stories that I invent, and then I started this series of like bedtime stories, which are like episodes with cliffhangers, they're adventure stories, and she chimes in and participates. She created a female werewolf character that just arrived on the scene, and I do the voices, obviously, and she started doing voices too at 5. She's very proud of being able to do that, and so I've been thinking about making a podcast out of it.
It sounds like you're halfway there.
Yeah, no kidding. I started taking notes, because she if I get something wrong in the continuity of the story, she'll tell me.
Of course.
They're smart. They're smart at that age. It's incredible. Like in one adventure, the evil mayor welded all the sewer grates in the city, and 3 adventures down the line, our heroes were trying to escape through the sewers. And she said, they can't do that. I said, why not? They're welded. I'm like, what do you mean? Like back then, the mayor did. I'm like, oh yeah, continuity, right? Uh-huh.
Yeah. Don't try anything on her. She's listening.
No, she's paying a lot of attention.
Captive bedtime audience. I think you should just need it. You just need to record it. You just need to go into Riverside and record it.
Yeah, exactly. I've been jotting down notes. I've started writing it out, because otherwise, I lose track. And I think we're coming up with something that's very fun.
Yeah.
A father-daughter project, as it were.
Mm.
So tell me, Ashley, what exactly is a global talent development manager? What does?
What do we do?
What do they do? What do you do?
Yeah, so what you said earlier, there's the talent acquisition side where you look to acquire talent. That's not in my domain. Those are my friends. They acquire the talent, the hiring, the recruitment, all of that is done by my colleagues. Once they come in the gates of the companies that I work for, they need to be grown, they need to be developed, nurtured, recognized. So there's a lot of growth and development that needs to happen once talent comes in the door. Mm-hmm. And in order for people to do their best work, they have to feel appreciated. So that's the recognition part. But there's so much that goes in behind the scenes as you're going through your career. There's the coaching element, there's the programmatic side. So building the right programs for the right people at the right time. Like, what does that look like? It's listening to insights that the company might have on, the engagement of the employees, on what people's challenges are, where they want to personally develop, or where does the group need development collectively. And then it's deciding how to be kind of a nice balance of reactive and proactive. Like, you don't want to just react to everything, but you also want to respond to the things that you're hearing. So what can you do proactively, knowing that this is your next fiscal year or the year after that, 24-month plan, 5-year plan, but also like what can you do immediately to impact people positively and kind of increase high performance. So there's a lot that can be done. It's also like where to start. And so I often start foundationally with something like leadership principles or values. So whatever the company might suggest is their guiding principles or their values, that's a really good starting point, and that's usually where I start. And then I embed everything that I do. I kind of focus and center it, rooted in those principles and values.
Awesome. And it also fosters loyalty from employees, because a lot of the candidates that I reach out to and that I successfully place somewhere else are still, as the case may be, they're gainfully employed, but one of the major reasons for looking or being open to other opportunities is they feel like they've stopped growing in their career, and they're looking for the next logical step.
Yeah.
And at the end of the spectrum, I have people that stayed for years and years, for working for the same company, but with a very clear path, growth path.
Yeah.
And that's why I always tell candidates, it doesn't matter if you stay like 5, 6, 7, 8 years at the same place, as long as you show that you've been growing, and that providing candidates with that kind of visibility is and possibility, I think, is key to retaining.
Yeah. I think that people, so there's two parts to it, like the growth and then also the support. Like they need to see a career trajectory, upward trajectory for sure, but they also need to feel supported. You can have the top performing employees, but if they don't feel recognized or supported, they'll find another place to feel better about themselves and their talents. So there's a real, I think there needs to be attention paid to both growing people in their career and their craft, but also as humans, the taking the time to listen and to treat them empathetically, like individuals, but like special people. Yeah,
because everyone is unique. Everyone is, I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. I always say that people are analog by definition, so you can try and fit them in boxes all day long, and no matter how granular your boxes are, it is never going to be a fit or perfect fit at all, because people are analog. It's just the best way I can come up with that. So incidentally, one of the questions that I ask candidates when screening them, and I share that information with the potential future employer, is what are their medium-term goals in terms of where they want to take their career, what they want to learn, and I always tell them it's good to have like a rough outline of where you want to go. Keep some flexibility in there. At one end of the spectrum, you have set in stone that within 6 months they want to have such and such title. That usually doesn't work so well. And at the other end of the spectrum is I'll go where the wind takes me, or something whimsical. In between is usually where I suggest they place the needle. And by that question is
I think it's also, I personally prefer goals that are more rooted in like behaviors and these are the skills that I want to develop versus this is the role I want. Because if you focus on the things that you want to get better at, the development opportunities that you know are gaps for yourself right now, then you will ultimately get to those roles that you're looking for. So if you are shooting for the goal of the next title at all costs, you'll miss out on the important piece of like actually defining what you're improving on and what you're trying to develop to get there.
Absolutely. And let's talk a bit about leadership, right?
Yeah.
What would you consider to be the best practices or the best leadership principles, and in turn, how do you define your own leadership style?
Yeah, okay. So I'll start with the things that I think make the best leader, and also it's not just what I think, it's what I've observed, what I've heard through my needs assessment, through my programs that I've delivered to leaders. What it really comes down to is trust, connection, and trust and psychological safety kind of go hand in hand there. Connection, which also includes communication. And I would say the last one is respect. So respect can exist in different forms, but if you respect, if you trust, and if you can communicate effectively with the people that report to you, with the people that you report to, it's kind of the recipe for success. All the other skills that are more related to the actual role, those are almost external to the leadership part, but really leading with empathy is kind of should be the kind of the wrapping of it all. And that's how I try to live by. I try to be that leader. So yes, I could speak about all the the leadership programs that I create or the coaching that I do, but it's much more about the method that I operate in. I try to bring levity. So I always try to have a little bit of fun. I try to make connection, but authentic connection, like being real and not trying to be someone I'm not, is just, who I am. And building trust, and trust doesn't happen overnight always. I give people, when people come to me, I see them with a full trust battery, but that's not always the case. I like to view people as having full trust batteries, and then the charge might go down or up according to situation. But I know that trust both ways has to be, it's an over time thing. And so establishing trust is really what one of my goals is, as a coach, as a leader.
Trust builds, it builds over time. It builds slowly but steadily over time. One thing I noticed about it is that it can drop overnight if something major happened, right? So it takes time to build, but it's precious, if it doesn't take much to tip it the other way, right?
And I would think that the role of a leader is to charge people's trust batteries. So it should never be depleted. You should never have depleted batteries when you're a leader. The people on your team, you should always be trying to charge them up. It's your job to motivate them, to truly see them for who they are, and to see the things that they bring to the table, like their strengths, their development opportunities, but championing them the whole way, for growing, for sharpening their skills, for all of that. I really see it as a leader's job to ensure that people are feeling charged up. Exactly. And last episode I was chatting with Jason Gallagher of he's VP engineering at Vidyard, and we were spitballing about the imposter syndrome, the ubiquitous imposter syndrome, and we were both of a mind that every one of us at some point will feel some kind of imposter syndrome to a degree or another. And it is my personal opinion that if you don't have any imposter syndrome ever, you're probably delusional. But that's me. I like to be very, black or white.
Yeah, exactly. But what's your take on the imposter syndrome and its prevalence today?
So I know it has high prevalence. And it typically manifests in high performers. It manifests in fast-paced environments where things are constantly changing. When someone's new to a role, it rears its ugly head because things are less certain, and you're trying to impress and prove your skills, prove yourself. I think that when I run a session and it's regarding this, it's on this topic, I think it really gives people a lot of comfort to know that they're not alone, and that a lot of people feel this way at some point in their life. And that I don't like the term, because the term suggests it's like there's a diagnosis, syndrome. What I like to call it is it's kind of a state more than anything. And I think that if you, like you said, if you don't actually experience it at some point, you're probably just not acknowledging it or defining it. But it doesn't mean it has to stick around forever. So I think that it can spike up and then kind of go into the shadows a little bit, but it is circumstantial. And you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but the most successful people still experience it.
Yeah.
So you don't need to reach a certain level of success to say, okay, I'm done with that. It's like, I don't know, Maya Angelou, I think, was one of the people who spoke up about imposter syndrome, saying that she felt like she was a very famous poet and writer, and she said that she felt like she ran a game on everyone just because like she couldn't believe that she had reached the success. And even Albert Einstein had professed to experience imposter syndrome. So it's pretty clear that it can affect just about anybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's healthy to acknowledge when you're feeling these things, and the only way through it is with the internal coach within you or external coach, but you can self-coach yourself through it with some tactics and techniques. But yeah, it's something that will probably be by your side for your life.
Yeah, it's a lifetime companion for most of us to a degree or to a degree or another. But at the end of the spectrum, we have the phenomenon of with social media and with personal branding, and we do have the opposite, which would be like an inflated ego. Like we've all encountered some inflated egos. I certainly have. So how do you deal with that? What are your strategies for keeping inflated egos in check somehow?
Yeah, so that's one of the kind of rules of engagement, especially at the company that I'm at currently. I'm at an AI company called Benchside. They have a set of rules of engagement, and one of them is checking your ego. And it's not checking your ego at the door, meaning you don't take your ego with you. Your ego is always with you. It's there. Yeah. But how do you check it? How do you kind of always have that pulse on your ego to ensure that you're not presenting yourself in a way, that you're not allowing your ego to take over in the room and make decisions for you and damage relationships. So it's often, I suggest pause. That's really the only solution for it. But taking time when you feel like the manifestations of maybe stress or anxiety coming in, to give yourself time before responding or reacting, rather, because reacting is really quick. Responding, giving yourself 24 hours is kind of my rule. If you feel something, it's usually important, but wait, because your best response is going to be the next day. So egos can come in, but if you give the ego 24 hours to chill, it'll chill your ego. It'll likely be a better scenario for everybody when you actually do act.
Yeah. When you have that gut reaction to answer right away to something that you perceive as an insult or that you perceive as an attack, it really does help to take that 24 hour to digest it and then and then act on it. And then you think back what you were about to do 24 hours prior
with
and you're
more clarity.
Thank God I didn't go that route, because it would have just poured more oil on the fire, right? I get that gut reaction sometimes and I want to, but I think, oh, wait, let's sleep on it.
Sleep on it. And I always suggest to the people that I coach, for instance, to write it out. Like, write out all of the things that you wish you were doing or saying right now. I bet you tomorrow you'll read it back and you'll say, okay, there's a better way of saying this or doing this or communicating this. But the emotions are pretty high at the moment, so getting them out there is cathartic for the moment, and then it's good to review and say, okay, let's scale this back a little.
That's why email is better than text messages for dealing with difficult situations, because you can save your draft, you can read it. Whereas text messages pretty much like it's an instantaneous communication, right? And you can't take it back. At the Cool Recruiters, I like to work with certain verticals, certain industries, and health is one of them, and green technology is one of them. And the overarching rule being that whatever company or industry leverages tech to make the world a better place, and education is obviously, as a father of a 5-year-old, is also very keen and close to my heart. And in terms of I wanted to get your input on online education. Do you see that replacing like the traditional classroom-based, school-based education at some point, or how do you see those two types of education mentalities like coexisting?
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. We're kind of at a technological turning point, I think, but for many things. But I think for this, I'm a fan of a hybrid approach always. So of a mixed approach, mixed method. So instructor led, face to face as when you can, but also self-guided. I think that what benefits people as they are taking in information is reading it, absorbing it. So giving pre-reads. I'm a big fan of a pre-read or a pre-listen material to be kind of going through at their own pace. But then those touch points for accountability or for sharing, collaboration, deeper dives into the topics. So treating people like adults, even if they aren't adults, like giving them that time to read and digest and then formulate an opinion and then share that opinion in person, I think is kind of my preferred way, so that they have the best of both worlds. They're able to share their ideas, excuse me, give themselves a chance to formulate an opinion, because some people need that time and they can't just think on their toes. Depends how you process the information. And then you can have a bit of a community feel where you connect with people, you share opinions, you get different perspectives. So I think if the world were to be a perfect place for education, it would be a mix of both. It would be digesting material on your own, having resources curated for you along the topic, and then jumping into a discussion and maybe ideally a coaching, so that you can really practice authentic scenarios. I think that's the perfect mix.
I completely agree, and get to also share insights with your peers and debate, right? I think the art of debate is getting lost somehow these days. But it's important to be able to debate, right? But even if you're not going to be an attorney in law or whatever, but to be able to have an opinion, defend that point.
Yeah. And also dissent sometimes, like comfortably dissent. I think that an echo chamber is like my absolute nightmare. Just being in a room of everyone who agrees with me, that's not my idea of fun. I want to hear other people's perspectives, and I want to be challenged, and I want to be able to challenge people respectfully and not feel like, again, like egos are being affected.
Absolutely. Absolutely loathe echo chambers for various reasons. But I agree with you there. Do you have any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the audience? Because we've covered quite a bit of ground, quite of the things that I wanted to discuss with you, and thank you for taking the time to share that with me. But anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
I would probably say that having a growth mindset is so important. And so if words of wisdom, not really, but it's keep open, understand that you're always growing. The fixed mindset is I think the end of people. Like if you don't allow yourself to see yourself as someone who's always growing and always learning, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So embracing knowledge, embracing other people's perspectives, knowing that your beliefs, your knowledge, your education is always evolving, and that you can always be more and do more. I think that's the key to success for anything really, for life, for parenting, for leadership, for everything. So just remaining kind of humble and open to learning, and knowing that you can learn in any direction. You can learn from little people, from people who have experienced what you've experienced. You can learn from people who haven't yet experienced what you've experienced, but who have a different perspective on things. So being open to other people's stories and other people's perceptions of how something is can really enrich your life.
Absolutely, and staying humble throughout all this, I think is key, and you know, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, your position. It doesn't necessarily come naturally, but you know, I found that if I take a step back and I say, okay, let's just, you know, wipe the slate and try to see things the way the other person is seeing them. Suddenly a lot of things start making a lot of sense, you know, but it takes that sort of, it comes with, for me at least, it came with practice, like just clean slate. Okay, let's put myself in his or her shoes and see things the way that they see it. I'm like, okay, yeah, now I understand that, you know, that reaction. It certainly makes sense.
Empathy is kind of the way forward. I would say also one other thing is to really elevate each other, meaning, and I say each other, like whoever's on your team, in your surroundings, look to lift others up and celebrate their strengths, and don't be shy to promote other people around you. I think sometimes we look at our own, like we're trying to self-promote or we're trying to get ahead, but I think it's really important to bring others up around you.
Yeah.
Especially women, lifting up other women. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and there's tremendous personal satisfaction in there as well, which as a recent father, like, you know, 5 years old my daughter is, but it is one of the most rewarding experience is to see my child grow, basically. Before, you know, people were explaining to me what it's like to be a parent, I said, yeah, that sounds fine, but until you are in those shoes and you are in that situation, you don't really get it. But now I get it. You know, it's one of the most rewarding activity.
The hardest and the most rewarding, right?
Yeah.
Like a nice mix. Yeah. I have 3 daughters now. I'm in the thick of it, but it's the wildest and best ride.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I agree with you. And so thank you for meeting with the captain in the captain's cabin today, Ashley. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Marty.
I'm glad you took the time, and yeah, we'll definitely stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks so much, Marty. Thanks.
You're welcome.